In the shadowed heart of 1920s London, fog curled like a spectre around Whitmore Manor. The air was thick with secrets, and tonight it carried death. Lady Eleanor Whitmore, mistress of the estate, lay lifeless in her study, a silver letter opener plunged into her heart. Blood pooled on the Persian rug, staining her silk gown. The room was locked from within, the key still in her hand. Hercule Poirot, summoned by a cryptic note, stood over the body, his gray eyes gleaming. Who had breached this sanctum, and why did the shadows seem to whisper his name? Chapter 1. The Summoning. The train rattled through the English countryside, its wheels clattering a restless rhythm against the iron tracks. Beyond the window, the fog of late autumn 1920s London draped the fields in a ghostly veil, blurring hedgerows into spectral shapes. Hercule Poirot sat erect in the first-class carriage, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of a cryptic note tucked in his pocket. The paper was heavy, its ink bold yet hurried. Come at once. Death stalks the shadow. Whitmore Manor. No signature, no flourish, only urgency. Poirot's gray eyes, sharp as polished steel, flickered with curiosity. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings shifted uncomfortably, his tweed coat creased from the journey. "Odd business, Poirot," he said, his voice tinged with unease. "Who sends such a vague summons, and to you of all people? It's dashed mysterious, if you ask me." His mustache twitched, a mirror to his agitation, as he glanced at the fog-smothered landscape. Whitmore Manor, too. Sounds like a place out of a Gothic novel. "Do you suppose it's a prank?" Poirot's lips curled into a faint, enigmatic smile. "A prank, mon ami? Non, non. The words, they carry weight. The curious, the desperate, or perhaps the guilty. They write such notes, we shall see." He adjusted his impeccable Homburg hat, his movements precise, almost theatrical. "The little gray cells, they are already at work. This shadow, it intrigues me." The train screeched to a halt at a desolate platform, the sign reading, "Whitmore Halt," barely visible through the mist. A chauffeured Rolls-Royce awaited, its driver a gaunt figure in black livery, his face as unyielding as the manor's reputation. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings," he intoned, his voice a low rumble. "I am Grayson, butler to Lady Eleanor Whitmore. You are expected." He offered no smile, only a curt nod, and ushered them into the car. The drive to Whitmore Manor wound through gnarled oaks and sodden fields, the fog thickening until the world seemed to dissolve into whispers of gray. Whitmore Manor loomed suddenly, a monolith of weathered stone and ivy, its windows like watchful eyes. Gargoyles perched on its eaves, their grimaces frozen in silent judgment. The air was heavy with damp and something less tangible, a sense of secrets held too long. Grayson led them through a creaking oak door into a grand hall where a chandelier cast flickering shadows across marble floors. Portraits of stern-faced Whitmores stared down, their eyes seeming to follow Poirot's every step. "The mistress is dead," Grayson announced without preamble, his words falling like stones into a still pond. "Murdered last night in her study. The door was locked from within, the key in her hand. No one entered, no one left." His voice wavered, betraying a crack in his stoic facade. "She was stabbed, sir. A letter opener through the heart." Hastings gasped, his hand flying to his collar. "Good heavens, murder? In a locked room? That's impossible." He turned to Poirot, whose expression remained unreadable save for a glint of anticipation in his eyes. "Impossible, mon ami," Poirot murmured, his voice soft yet resonant. "The impossible is merely a puzzle awaiting solution. Show us to the scene, Monsieur Grayson, if you please." The butler led them down a corridor lined with tapestries, their faded threads depicting scenes of hunt and conquest. The air grew colder, the silence heavier, as they approached the study. Grayson paused before a heavy door, its brass lock gleaming ominously. "This is where it happened," he said, unlocking it with a key from his chain. The door groaned open, revealing a room frozen in time. Lady Eleanor Whitmore lay slumped over her mahogany desk, her silk gown stained crimson. A silver letter opener protruded from her chest, its handle catching the dim light of a single lamp. Blood had pooled on the Persian rug, its intricate patterns now marred by tragedy. Her hand clutched a key as if guarding it even in death. The windows were bolted, the curtains undisturbed. A faint scent of lavender lingered, mingling with the metallic tang of blood. Poirot stepped forward, his polished shoes silent on the rug. He bent over the body, his eyes scanning every detail. The angle of the letter opener, the rigidity of Eleanor's fingers, the faint smudge of wax on the desk's edge. "Curieux," he muttered, touching the wax with a gloved finger. "A candle, perhaps, but where is it?" He straightened, his gaze sweeping the room, a bookshelf laden with leather-bound tomes, a fireplace cold and dark, a crystal decanter half filled with amber liquid. Nothing seemed out of place, yet everything felt wrong. Hastings hovered near the door, his face pale. "What do you make of it, Poirot? A locked room, a murder. How could anyone have done this, and why summon you?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The why, Hastings, is the heart of the matter. Someone wished for Hercule Poirot to unravel this knot. Perhaps they fear the truth, or perhaps they crave it. We shall meet the household, no? The suspects, they await." Grayson led them to the drawing room, where the air was thick with tension. 4 figures stood or sat, their faces a gallery of grief, suspicion, and secrets. Poirot's presence seemed to shift the room's gravity, each person turning to him as if drawn by an unseen force. Dr. Julian Carver, the family physician, stood by the fireplace, his lean frame rigid. His hands twitched, betraying a nervous tic, and his eyes darted to the others before settling on Poirot. "I tried to save her," he said, his voice strained. "I was too late. She was troubled lately, sleepless, anxious. I prescribed sedatives, but—" He trailed off, his fingers brushing expensive cufflinks that seemed at odds with his modest demeanor. Miss Clara Henshaw, Eleanor's ward, sat in a high-backed chair, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her green eyes wide with shock or fear. She was young, no more than 20, yet her posture suggested a burden far older. "Lady Eleanor was kind to me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But she had enemies. I saw her argue with someone days ago." She bit her lip as if regretting her words. Mr. Reginald Baxter, Eleanor's business partner, paced near a window, his broad shoulders tense. His suit was tailored, but his tie was askew and his jaw clenched as he spoke. "This is a tragedy, Mr. Poirot, but Eleanor's dealings, her investments, made her a target. She was stubborn, refused to listen." His tone carried a hint of resentment, and his eyes flicked to Clara, as if measuring her. Mrs. Beatrice Langley, Eleanor's estranged sister, sat on a velvet settee, her hands twisting a lace handkerchief. Her graying hair was pulled into a severe bun, and her eyes were red-rimmed, though whether from tears or rage was unclear. "My sister was a tyrant," she said bitterly. "She held this family's secrets like a weapon. Now look where it's got her." Her voice cracked and she looked away, clutching the handkerchief tighter. Poirot surveyed them, his mustache twitching slightly. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice smooth as velvet, "a crime has been committed, and Hercule Poirot is here to uncover the truth. Each of you, I suspect, knows more than you say, the shadow of which the note speaks. It is here, among us." He paused, letting the words settle like dust. "I shall begin with the study. Hastings, you will assist." Back in the study, Poirot examined the scene with meticulous care. The wax smudge intrigued him, a faint, irregular mark, as if a candle had dripped in haste. He searched for the candle but found none. The letter opener was ornate, its handle engraved with a delicate W. The desk held papers neatly stacked except for one corner where they were slightly askew. Poirot lifted a sheet, revealing a faint ink blot, as if someone had written in a hurry. "A clue, Hastings," he said, "or a deception. The mind. It must remain open." He moved to the windows, testing their bolts. They were secure, the latches rusted from disuse. The fireplace showed no signs of recent use, its ashes cold. Yet something nagged at Poirot's senses. A faint draft, perhaps, or a whisper of movement in the still air. He knelt, inspecting the rug, and found a single thread, blue and fine, caught in a splinter of the floorboard. It did not match Eleanor's gown or the rug's pattern. "Interesting," he murmured, pocketing the thread. Hastings, ever eager, hovered over the desk. "What do you think, Poirot? A jealous lover, a business rival? Or this shadow business sounds like nonsense to me?" His voice was loud in the quiet room, and Poirot raised a finger for silence. "Nonsense, mon ami. Never dismiss what you do not understand. The shadow, it is a metaphor, perhaps, or a person. We must learn what Lady Eleanor feared." He turned to Grayson, who lingered by the door. "Monsieur, who was closest to Lady Eleanor? Who knew her secrets?" Grayson hesitated, his eyes flickering. "Miss Clara, perhaps. She lived here under Lady Eleanor's care. But the mistress kept her own counsel. She trusted no one fully, not even me." His voice held a trace of sorrow, quickly masked. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloging every word, every glance. The suspect's motives were emerging like shapes in the fog. Carver's nervousness, Clara's secrecy, Baxter's ambition, Beatrice's bitterness. Each was a piece in the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. The wax smudge, the thread, the locked door, they were threads in a tapestry of deceit. As Poirot prepared to question the suspects further, a scream shattered the silence, echoing from the corridor beyond. It was sharp, piercing, a cry of terror that froze the blood. Hastings bolted toward the door, but Poirot raised a hand, his eyes alight with purpose. "Calm, mon ami. The game. It has begun." Chapter 2. The Scream in the Night. The scream tore through Whitmore Manor like a blade, sharp and chilling, echoing off the marble floors and fading into the fog-draped silence. Hercule Poirot froze mid-step in Lady Eleanor Whitmore's study, his gloved hand poised over the wax smudge on her desk. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever impulsive, lunged toward the door, his face flushed with alarm. "Good Lord, Poirot, that was no ordinary cry. Someone's in danger." His voice trembled, betraying the soldier's instinct that never quite left him. Poirot raised a finger, his gray eyes gleaming like polished flint in the lamplight. "Calm, mon ami," he said, his voice soft yet commanding. "A scream, it reveals much. Fear, perhaps, or deception. We must observe, not rush." He adjusted his immaculate coat, his movements deliberate, as if the scream were merely another piece in the puzzle of Eleanor's murder. The study, with its blood-stained rug and locked door, seemed to pulse with secrets, and Poirot's little gray cells were already weaving threads of suspicion. The corridor beyond was dim, its walls adorned with somber portraits whose eyes seemed to follow them. The scream had come from the east wing, where the manor's private quarters lay. Grayson, the butler, appeared from the shadows, his face paler than before. "It was Miss Henshaw," he said, his voice low and strained. "She's in her room. She saw something." His hesitation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken dread. Poirot's mustache twitched. "Something, Monsieur Grayson? Or someone?" He gestured for Hastings to follow, his polished shoes clicking on the polished floor as they moved toward Clara Henshaw's room. The air grew colder, the fog pressing against the windows like a living thing, its tendrils seeping through unseen cracks. The manor, Poirot noted, was not just a house. It was a labyrinth of motives and memories. Clara's door stood ajar, a sliver of candlelight flickering within. Poirot knocked lightly, his knuckles barely brushing the wood, yet the sound seemed to reverberate. "Mademoiselle Henshaw," he called, his voice smooth as velvet. "It is Hercule Poirot." "May we enter?" A muffled sob answered, followed by a shaky, "Yes." "Please." Inside, Clara sat on the edge of her bed, her auburn hair loose and tangled, her green eyes wide with terror. She clutched a shawl around her shoulders, her hands trembling. Before her stood a gilt-framed mirror, its surface reflecting the room's sparse furnishings. A mahogany wardrobe, a writing desk, and a single candle, its flame wavering as if stirred by an unseen breath. "I saw her," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Eleanor's shadow in the mirror. It moved, Mr. Poirot, I swear it." Her words tumbled out frantic, as if she feared they wouldn't be believed. Hastings frowned, peering at the mirror, which showed only their reflections. "Nonsense, surely," he muttered, though his tone lacked conviction. "Mirrors don't show ghosts, Miss Henshaw. Perhaps it was a trick of the light?" Poirot's eyes narrowed, studying Clara's face. Her fear seemed genuine, yet there was a flicker of something else. Guilt, perhaps, or calculation. "Describe this shadow, mademoiselle," he said, his tone gentle but probing. Was it Lady Eleanor's form, precise in detail, or merely a shape, vague and fleeting? Clara hesitated, her fingers twisting the shawl. It was her silhouette, the way she stood, so proud, so cold. It was there, then gone like a wisp of smoke. She pointed to the mirror, her hand shaking. I lit the candle to check my reflection, and there it was behind me. Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. Poirot approached the mirror, his reflection sharp and composed. He tilted his head, examining the frame, the glass, the angle of the light. The candle on Clara's desk was half burned, its wax pooling in a silver holder. He touched the wax, noting its texture matched the smudge in Eleanor's study. "Curieux," he murmured, his mind cataloging the detail. Was Clara's vision a delusion, a trick, or a carefully staged distraction? The little gray cells hummed with possibilities. "Miss Henshaw," Poirot said, turning to her. "You were close to Lady Eleanor, no? Tell me what troubled her in her final days." His question was gentle, but his eyes were relentless, searching for the truth beneath her fear. Clara swallowed, her gaze flickering to the door. She was different lately, secretive. She argued with Mr. Baxter about money, something about a failed investment. He was furious, shouting in the library last week, and Dr. Carver, he kept giving her sedatives, but she said they made her see things. Shadows, she called them. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She told me once, "The shadow knows my secrets." I thought she was mad. Hastings raised an eyebrow. "Shadows again? This is getting peculiar, Poirot." He paced, his boots scuffing the rug. "Do you think she's telling the truth, or is she spinning a yarn to throw us off?" Poirot did not answer immediately. Instead, he moved to Clara's desk, where a small diary lay open, its pages filled with neat, feminine script. He did not touch it, but his eyes scanned the lines. "Mademoiselle, you keep a diary, I see." "Did Lady Eleanor keep one as well?" Clara nodded, her cheeks flushing. "She did, but she locked it in her desk. I don't know what was in it." Her voice wavered, and Poirot noted the slight tremor in her hands. Was she hiding something or merely overwhelmed? Leaving Clara to compose herself, Poirot and Hastings returned to the drawing room, where the other suspects awaited. The air was thick with suspicion, the fire in the hearth casting long shadows across the room. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the mantel, his nervous tic more pronounced, his fingers drumming against his cufflinks. "Is Miss Henshaw all right?" he asked, his voice tight. "She's delicate, you know. Eleanor's death has shaken her." Poirot's eyes lingered on Carver's cufflinks, gold engraved, far too fine for a country doctor. "Monsieur Carver," he said, "you prescribed sedatives for Lady Eleanor, oui? Tell me, what ailed her? And why do your hands betray such unease?" Carver flinched, his tic worsening. "She suffered from insomnia, paranoia," he said. "She complained of visions. I gave her something mild, nothing more. I'm a doctor, Mr. Poirot, not a miracle worker." His tone was defensive, and his eyes darted to the others as if seeking an ally. Mr. Reginald Baxter, pacing near the window, scoffed. "Paranoia? Eleanor was sharp as a tack, Carver. She knew her business dealings were risky. I told her that investment in the docks was a mistake, but she wouldn't listen. Made enemies, she did, people who'd kill for less than her fortune." His voice was gruff, but his hands clenched, betraying his own anxiety. Mrs. Beatrice Langley, seated on the settee, clutched her handkerchief, her eyes red but dry. "Enemies?" she said bitterly. "Eleanor made enemies of her own family. She cut me out of her will, Mr. Poirot, after years of loyalty. And she spoke of a curse, a shadow that haunted the Whitmores. Superstitious nonsense, I thought, but now—" Her voice trailed off, and she shivered as if the room had grown colder. Poirot's gaze swept over them, his mind a whirl of connections. The wax smudge, Clara's vision, Eleanor's paranoia, the coded note in his pocket, they were pieces of a mosaic, each fragment hinting at a larger truth. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice resonant, "the shadow of which you speak, it is no ghost. It is a person, a motive, a secret. Hercule Poirot will find it." He returned to the study, determined to uncover more. The locked door intrigued him, its key still clutched in Eleanor's lifeless hand. He examined the desk again, his fingers brushing the wax smudge. Beneath a stack of papers, he found a hidden drawer, its lock cleverly concealed. With a hairpin from Clara's room, borrowed with her reluctant consent, he pried it open. Inside was a single letter, its envelope sealed with red wax, the same shade as the smudge. The letter bore no address, only a cryptic message in Eleanor's elegant hand. "Trust no one. The shadow knows." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Aha, Hastings, a thread in the tapestry." He pocketed the letter, his mind racing. Was it a warning, a confession, or a trap? The wax linked Clara to the study, but was she the killer or a pawn? Carver's sedatives, Baxter's debts, Beatrice's resentment. Each suspect was a shadow in their own right. As he turned to share his find with Hastings, a gunshot rang out from the garden, sharp and startling in the night's silence. The sound shattered the manor's stillness, sending a chill through the air. Hastings bolted for the door, but Poirot's voice stopped him. "Carefully, mon ami. The shadow moves, and we must follow." Chapter 3. The Garden's Secret. The gunshot shattered the oppressive silence of Whitmore Manor, its echo rolling through the fog like a thunderclap. Hercule Poirot, standing in Lady Eleanor Whitmore's study with the cryptic letter in his hand, tilted his head, his gray eyes narrowing. Captain Arthur Hastings, already halfway to the door, spun back, his face flushed with alarm. "Good heavens, Poirot! A gunshot! Someone's out there, perhaps the killer!" His voice was taut, his soldier's instincts urging action. Poirot raised a gloved hand, his composure unshaken. "Patience, mon ami," he said, his voice a calm counterpoint to the chaos. "A gunshot, it is a statement, perhaps a warning, perhaps a distraction. We must proceed with care, not haste." He tucked the letter, "Trust no one. The shadow knows," into his pocket, its weight a reminder of the mystery's depth. The wax smudge on Eleanor's desk, Clara's vision in the mirror, and now this gunshot formed a constellation of clues, each demanding his little gray cell's attention. The study's heavy air, thick with the scent of blood and lavender, seemed to press against them as they stepped into the corridor. The manor was a labyrinth of shadows, its walls whispering secrets older than the crime itself. Grayson the butler appeared from the drawing room, his stone-like face etched with unease. "It came from the garden, sir," he said, his voice low. "I heard it from the servants' hall. Shall I fetch the others?" "Non, Monsieur Grayson," Poirot replied, his tone crisp. "We shall investigate alone. The suspects, they must remain where they are, watched, not wandering." He gestured for Hastings to follow, his polished shoes clicking on the marble as they moved toward the manor's rear entrance. The fog outside was denser now, a gray shroud that swallowed the world beyond the windows. The garden, Poirot knew, held more than roses. It held answers. The rear door opened onto a frost-kissed lawn where the air was sharp and damp, carrying the faint scent of gunpowder. The garden was a maze of hedges and statues, their shapes distorted by the mist into ghostly forms. Poirot's eyes scanned the ground, noting the crunch of gravel underfoot. Undisturbed save for a single set of footprints leading to a figure near the rose arbor. It was Mr. Reginald Baxter, his broad frame unmistakable, a revolver gleaming in his hand. His face, caught in the lantern's glow, was a mask of defiance and fear. "Mr. Poirot," Baxter called, his voice rough. "I fired at a prowler, a shadow in the hedges. It moved fast toward the woods." He gestured wildly, the revolver still clutched tightly. His suit, though tailored, was rumpled, and his tie hung loose, as if he'd dressed in haste. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gaze piercing. "A shadow, Monsieur Baxter? Convenient, non, that it leaves no trace?" He knelt, inspecting the ground. The gravel showed no signs of disturbance beyond Baxter's footprints, no scuff marks or broken twigs to suggest a fleeing figure. "Your aim, it is poor, or your story poorer," he said, rising. "Why were you in the garden, armed at such an hour?" Baxter's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering to Hastings, then back to Poirot. "I couldn't sleep. Eleanor's death. It's shaken us all. I thought I heard something, so I came to check. That's when I saw it, a figure cloaked in the fog." His voice wavered, and Poirot noted the sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. Hastings, lantern in hand, peered into the hedges. "No tracks, Poirot. He's spinning a tale, isn't he? Trying to throw us off." His indignation was palpable, his loyalty to Poirot fueling his suspicion. Poirot's expression remained unreadable. "Perhaps, mon ami, or perhaps Monsieur Baxter believes his own story. The mind, it plays tricks in the fog." He turned to Baxter. "The revolver, if you please, it must be examined." Baxter hesitated, then handed it over, his grip reluctant. Poirot noted its weight, its barrel still warm, and slipped it into his coat. "We return to the manor. The truth, it waits inside." Back in the drawing room, the suspects were a study in tension. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the fire, his nervous tic more pronounced, his fingers brushing his gold cufflinks. Miss Clara Henshaw sat in her chair, her shawl pulled tight, her green eyes darting to the door. Mrs. Beatrice Langley clutched her handkerchief, her lips pressed into a thin line. The air was heavy with unspoken accusations. The fire's crackle the only sound until Poirot spoke. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice resonant, "a gunshot in the night is no small matter. Monsieur Baxter claims a prowler, yet the garden betrays no such visitor. What do you know of this?" His eyes swept over them, lingering on each face, seeking the flicker of guilt. Carver cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I was here, Mr. Poirot. I heard the shot, but I saw nothing. Eleanor, she was paranoid, you know. She spoke of intruders, shadows watching her. I thought it was her illness." His hands shook, and Poirot noted the faint scent of antiseptic clinging to him. Clara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I was in my room after the mirror. I didn't hear anything until the shot. Could it have been an accident? Her eyes met Poirot's, wide and pleading, but he saw the calculation beneath her fear. Beatrice's laugh was bitter, cutting through the room. An accident? In this house? Eleanor made enemies, Mr. Poirot. Business rivals, family, even me. She changed her will last month, cut me out completely. Clara gets everything now. Her voice dripped with resentment, and Clara flinched, her hands twisting the shawl. Poirot's mind whirred, cataloging the clues: Baxter's gunshot, the absent prowler, Beatrice's revelation, Clara's inheritance. He returned to the study, determined to unravel the locked room mystery. The letter, "Trust no one, the shadow knows," burned in his pocket, its words a challenge. He examined Eleanor's desk again, his fingers tracing the wax smudge. The hidden drawer, opened earlier, held only the letter, but a faint scratch on the desk's underside caught his eye. He knelt, peering beneath, and found a tiny notch, as if a key had been taped there and removed. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, his little gray cells alight. He summoned Grayson, who stood rigid by the door. "Monsieur, the key in Lady Eleanor's hand. Was it the only one to this study?" Grayson hesitated, his eyes flickering. "There was another, sir, kept in the housekeeper's office, but it's been missing for weeks. Mrs. Langley, she asked about it once." His voice was steady, but Poirot sensed a guarded truth. Hastings, hovering nearby, whispered, "Beatrice. Could she have taken it? She's got motive, Poirot, cut out of the will, bitter as gall." His enthusiasm was earnest, but Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Patience, Hastings. The key, it is a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole. We must speak to Madame Langley." They found Beatrice in the library, surrounded by shelves of leather-bound books, her face pale as she pored over an old family album. Poirot's approach was silent, his presence almost ghostly. "Madam," he said, his voice soft but commanding, "you sought the study key." "Why?" Beatrice started, the album slipping from her hands. I wanted Eleanor's letters. She had old family correspondence, things she kept from me. I thought they might explain why she turned against me." Her voice cracked and tears welled, but Poirot's eyes were relentless. "And the key, you found it?" he pressed, his tone gentle but unyielding. "No!" Beatrice cried, her hands trembling. "I looked, but it was gone. I swear it, Mr. Poirot." Her desperation rang true, yet Poirot noted the album's open page, a photograph of Eleanor and Beatrice as girls, their smiles shadowed by something unspoken. He turned to leave, but a maid's voice stopped him, breathless and urgent. "Sir, the housekeeper found something, a key in Dr. Carver's coat pocket." Carver, summoned, paled, his tic worsening. "I don't know how it got there," he stammered. "Someone must have planted it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. The missing key, the wax smudge, the gunshot, each clue was a thread in a tapestry of deceit. As he pondered, a creak echoed from the attic above, sharp and deliberate, like a footstep on old wood. The room froze, every eye turning upward. Chapter 4. Whispers from Above. The creak from the attic sliced through the tense silence of Whitmore Manor, a sharp, deliberate sound that seemed to carry the weight of secrets long buried. Hercule Poirot, standing in the library with the newly discovered key in his hand, tilted his head, his gray eyes gleaming like polished steel in the dim light. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever alert, spun toward the ceiling, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon he no longer carried. "Good Lord, Poirot," he whispered, his voice taut with alarm. "That wasn't the wind. Someone's up there." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. "Précisément, mon ami," he said, his voice calm yet resonant, a beacon in the manor's oppressive gloom. "The attic, it whispers to us. Perhaps it holds the shadow we seek." He glanced at the suspects gathered in the library. Dr. Julian Carver, Miss Clara Henshaw, Mr. Reginald Baxter, and Mrs. Beatrice Langley. Their faces a gallery of unease. The key found in Carver's coat had deepened the suspicion swirling around them, and now this sound from above added another layer to the mystery of Lady Eleanor Whitmore's murder. The library was a cavern of knowledge and shadows, its towering shelves laden with leather-bound tomes, their spines cracked with age. A single chandelier cast flickering light across the room, painting the suspects' faces in hues of doubt and fear. Poirot's gaze lingered on Beatrice, who clutched the family album, her knuckles white. "Madam Langley," he said, his tone gentle but probing, "you spoke of a missing key, yet it appears in Dr. Carver's possession. What do you know of the attic?" Beatrice's eyes darted upward, her lips trembling. "The attic? It's just storage, old trunks, relics of the Whitmore family. Eleanor never went up there. She said it was cursed, a place of ghosts." Her voice was brittle, and Poirot noted the flicker of superstition in her eyes, a contrast to her earlier bitterness. Carver cleared his throat, his nervous tick more pronounced. "I've never been to the attic," he said, his voice strained. "That key, I swear someone planted it. I'm no thief, Mr. Poirot, and certainly no murderer." His hands shook, betraying his words, and the gold cufflinks gleamed incongruously against his modest attire. Clara, seated near the fire, pulled her shawl tighter, her auburn hair catching the light. "I heard stories," she said softly, her green eyes wide. "Eleanor said the attic held secrets, things she didn't want found. I thought it was just her paranoia." Her voice wavered, and Poirot wondered if her fear was genuine or a mask. Baxter, pacing near a window, scoffed. "Ghosts and curses? Nonsense. Eleanor was a businesswoman, not a mystic. If there's something up there, it's probably papers. Contracts she hid from me." His tone was gruff, but his eyes flicked nervously to the ceiling, betraying his bravado. Poirot's mind whirred, cataloging their words, their glances, the creak's timing. The key, the wax smudge, the coded letter, and now the attic. They were threads in a tapestry of deceit. "Hastings," he said, his voice crisp. "We ascend. The attic, it calls to Hercule Poirot." He gestured for Grayson, the butler, to lead the way. Ignoring Hastings, muttered, "This place gives me the creeps." The attic stairs were narrow and steep, their wood groaning under each step. Dust motes danced in the beam of Hastings' lantern, the air thick with the scent of mildew and thyme. Cobwebs draped the rafters like ghostly veils, and the cold seeped through Poirot's impeccable coat. At the top, a heavy door stood ajar, its hinges rusted but recently disturbed. Poirot paused, his senses alert, noting a faint scuff mark on the floor. A boot, perhaps, too large for Clara's delicate feet. Inside, the attic was a mausoleum of forgotten things. Trunks piled haphazardly, a cracked mirror leaning against a wall, and a locked chest, its brass fittings tarnished but scratched, as if recently forced. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Aha, Hastings, a treasure trove of secrets." He knelt beside the chest, his gloved fingers tracing the scratches. "This lock, it has been tampered with. Recent none." Hastings, ever eager, pried the chest open with a crowbar from a corner. Inside lay a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed but intact. Poirot lifted it, carefully, his fingers brushing the embossed W on its cover. Eleanor's initial. The first page read, "The shadow watches. I cannot escape it. They know my secret, and I fear for my life." The words were written in a hurried hand, the ink smudged as if penned in distress. "Great Scott, Poirot!" Hastings exclaimed, peering over his shoulder. Eleanor was terrified. What secret, and who's they? His voice echoed in the attic stillness, stirring the dust. Poirot's eyes scanned the pages, his mind racing. The diary detailed Eleanor's growing fear of a shadow, someone close, someone trusted. "They know what I did," she wrote, "and they will use it against me." The entries were cryptic, mentioning meetings with Baxter, arguments with Beatrice, and Carver's frequent visits. One passage stood out. "The attic holds the truth, but I dare not face it." Poirot closed the diary, his expression unreadable. "The truth, it is here, Hastings, but it is veiled. This diary, it is a map to the killer's heart." He pocketed it, his gaze falling on a pile of old letters tied with faded ribbon. He untied them, revealing correspondence between Eleanor and an unknown man, dated 20 years prior. The letters spoke of love, betrayal, and a child, a secret buried deep. Poirot's little gray cells hummed. Was this the shadow's origin? They descended to the library where the suspects awaited, their tension palpable. Poirot held up the diary, watching their reactions. Clara's eyes widened. Carver's tic worsened. Baxter's pacing stopped, and Beatrice's handkerchief fell to the floor. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot said, his voice a blade. "Lady Eleanor feared a shadow. This diary, it speaks of a secret, a child perhaps, or a betrayal. Who among you knows of this?" Clara spoke first, her voice trembling. "I saw her argue with Mr. Baxter last week in the library. He was furious. Something about a failed investment. She threatened to ruin him." Her words were soft but pointed, and Baxter's face reddened. "Lies!" Baxter snapped, his fists clenched. "Eleanor was reckless, yes, but I didn't kill her. Those investments were her idea. She owed me, not the other way around." His voice cracked, and Poirot noted the desperation in his eyes. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "Ruin him? Eleanor ruined us all. She stole my inheritance, Mr. Poirot, and hid her secrets in that attic. I took the study key to find her letters, but I never found them." Her admission hung in the air, and Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And you, Monsieur Carver?" he asked, turning to the doctor. "The key in your coat. How do you explain it?" Carver's hands shook, his cufflinks glinting. "I told you it was planted. I treated Eleanor's paranoia, nothing more. She was unstable." His voice faltered, and Poirot sensed a lie beneath his fear. The diary, the letters, the key, they were pieces of a puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. Poirot returned to the study, determined to connect the clues. The wax smudge, still a mystery, suggested a candle used in haste. He searched the desk again, finding a faint scratch on the floorboard near the rug. A hidden panel, perhaps? He pressed it, but it didn't budge. "Curieux," he murmured, his mind racing. As he pondered, a maid entered, her face pale. "Sir, I found something in the library, Mr. Baxter's ledger, hidden behind a shelf. It's not right." She handed Poirot a leather-bound book, its pages filled with numbers that didn't add up. Debts, forged contracts, Eleanor's signature scrawled in haste. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Uh-huh, a motive, perhaps. But is it the truth, or another deception?" He confronted Baxter, who paled at the sight of the ledger. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "Eleanor approved those deals. She knew the risks." His voice was desperate, but Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The clues were mounting: the diary, the letters, the ledger, the key. But the shadow remained elusive. As Poirot prepared to question Clara further, a window shattered in the study below, the crash echoing through the manor like a gunshot. Glass scattered across the rug, and a cold wind swept in, carrying the scent of frost and fear. Chapter 5. Shattered Glass. The crash of shattering glass reverberated through Whitmore Manor, a violent intrusion that sliced through the heavy silence like a scream in the night. Hercule Poirot, standing in the library with Eleanor's diary and Baxter's ledger in hand, froze, his gray eyes narrowing to slits. Captain Arthur Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder at the forged contracts, spun toward the sound, his face paling. "Good heavens, Poirot, that came from the study. Someone's broken in." His voice was urgent, his soldier's instincts flaring as he bolted toward the door. Poirot raised a gloved hand, his composure a steady anchor in the chaos. "Calm, mon ami," he said, his voice smooth yet commanding. "A window broken, it is no accident. It is a message or a desperate act. We must observe, not rush blindly." He tucked the diary and ledger into his coat, their weight a reminder of the mounting clues, the wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic's secrets. And now, this intrusion. The manor with its fog-shrouded walls and whispering shadows seemed to pulse with malice, and Poirot's little gray cells were alive with possibilities. The corridor to the study was dim, the chandelier's light casting long shadows that danced like specters. Grayson, the butler, appeared from the servants' hall, his stone-like face etched with alarm. "Sir, the study window, it's smashed. I saw no one, but the wind—" His voice trailed off, and Poirot noted the tremor in his hands, a rare crack in his stoic facade. "Non, Monsieur Grayson," Poirot replied, his tone crisp. "The wind does not throw stones. Lead us to the scene." The air grew colder as they approached the study, the fog seeping through the broken window, carrying the scent of frost and earth. The manor's secrets were unraveling, thread by thread, and Poirot sensed the shadow growing bolder. The study was a tableau of destruction. Glass littered the Persian rug, glinting like scattered diamonds in the lamplight. The window, bolted from within, had been shattered from outside, its frame splintered. On the rug lay a stone wrapped in a handkerchief, white, monogrammed with a bold R.B. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers lifting the stone carefully. "Aha, Hastings," he murmured, "a clue, most careless. Monsieur Baxter, perhaps?" Hastings peered at the handkerchief, his eyes wide. "Baxter's initials. He's the prowler, isn't he? First the gunshot, now this." His indignation was palpable, but Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Perhaps, mon ami, or perhaps someone wishes us to think so. The handkerchief, it is too convenient, non?" He examined the stone, noting its weight and the faint dirt smudged on the fabric. The window's latch was intact, suggesting the stone was thrown with force. Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on Eleanor's desk, where the wax smudge seemed to mock him. The hidden drawer, the diary, the ledger, all pointed to motives, but this act felt like panic. They returned to the library where the suspects gathered, their faces a gallery of suspicion and fear. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the fire, his nervous tic pronounced, his gold cufflinks catching the light. Miss Clara Henshaw clutched her shawl, her green eyes darting to the door. Mr. Reginald Baxter paced, his broad frame tense, while Mrs. Beatrice Langley sat rigid, her handkerchief twisted in her hands. The air was thick with tension, the fire's crackle a faint counterpoint to the storm brewing within. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, holding up the handkerchief, "a window is broken, and this is found. Monsieur Baxter, you recognize your initials, oui?" His voice was a blade cutting through the room's unease. Baxter's face reddened, his fists clenching. "That's mine, yes, but I didn't throw it. Someone stole it from my room days ago. I'm no vandal, Poirot." His voice was gruff, but Poirot noted the sweat on his brow, the flicker of fear in his eyes. Clara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I saw Mr. Baxter near the study last night before Eleanor died. He was angry, muttering about money." Her words were hesitant, but they landed like a blow, and Baxter spun toward her. "Lies," he snapped. "You're twisting things, girl. Eleanor owed me. Those contracts were her doing." His desperation was palpable, and Poirot's mind catalogued the ledger's forged signatures, a motive as clear as the broken glass. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "Money? Eleanor hoarded secrets, not just wealth. She hid something in that study, something worth killing for. Her eyes met Poirot's, defiant yet haunted, and he recalled her admission about the key. Carver cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I was in my room when the window broke. I heard it, but I saw nothing. Eleanor's paranoia. She feared intruders. I warned her." His hands shook, and Poirot noted the faint scent of antiseptic, a reminder of his medical bag. Poirot's gaze lingered on Carver. "Monsieur Carver, your bag, may I see it?" The doctor hesitated, then fetched it from the corner. Inside, among vials and instruments, was an empty bottle labeled laudanum. But Poirot's keen eye spotted another vial tucked deeper, unmarked and half-empty. He lifted it, sniffing cautiously, a sharp, bitter odor, not laudanum. "Curieux," he murmured. "A poison, perhaps." Carver paled, his tic worsening. "That's a mistake, a tonic, nothing more. Eleanor needed stronger remedies." His voice faltered, and Poirot pocketed the vial, his mind racing. Poison, a broken window, a planted handkerchief, each was a piece of the puzzle. Clara, her voice trembling, spoke again. "Eleanor had a secret. A child," she said, "given up long ago. She told me once in confidence, but she never said who. It haunted her." Her words hung in the air, and Poirot's thoughts turned to the addict's letters, mentioning a child and a lover. Was this the Shadow's heart? Hastings whispered. "A child. That could explain everything, Poirot. Jealousy, betrayal." His enthusiasm was earnest, but Poirot's smile was measured. "Perhaps, mon ami, but we must verify. The truth, it hides in details." He returned to the study, determined to uncover more. The broken window intrigued him. Why target the study now? He examined the desk, finding a photograph tucked in the hidden drawer missed earlier. It showed a young Eleanor with a man, his face blurred but familiar. Carver, perhaps, in his youth. The image was faded, but the intimacy was clear. Poirot's little gray cells, word, the diary's mention of a child, the letter's betrayal, Carver's vial, Baxter's handkerchief, all pointed to a web of deceit. He summoned the maid who had found the key in Carver's coat. "Miss, you saw something else, non? Speak." The maid hesitated, her voice low. "I saw Miss Clara near the study window yesterday, sir. She was looking out, like she was waiting for someone." Clara summoned, flushed, her hands twisting her shawl. "I was worried about Eleanor," she said. She'd been distant, frightened. "I thought she might meet someone." Her voice was soft, but Poirot sensed a lie beneath her fear. The clues were mounting, but the picture remained elusive. As Poirot pondered, a flicker of light caught his eye, a spark in the library where Baxter's ledger was kept. A fire erupted, sudden and fierce, its flames licking the shelves. The room filled with smoke, and shouts echoed as the suspects scrambled. Chapter 6. Flames of Deception. The library erupted in chaos, flames licking the ancient shelves of Whitmore Manor with a hunger that matched the secrets they concealed. The fire's roar was a primal thing, its heat searing the air as smoke curled like a malevolent spirit. Hercule Poirot, standing near the doorway with the damning ledger of Reginald Baxter in hand, narrowed his gray eyes, undeterred by the inferno. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever loyal but flustered, coughed violently, his face flushed as he shouted, "Poirot, the ledger, it's in there. Someone's trying to destroy the evidence." His voice cracked with urgency, his soldier's instincts battling the smoke's chokehold. Poirot's mustache twitched, his composure a beacon amidst the pandemonium. "Calm, mon ami," he said, his voice steady as polished steel. "The truth, it does not burn so easily. This fire, it is no accident. It is a desperate act to hide what we have uncovered." He clutched the ledger tighter, its pages filled with forged contracts bearing Eleanor Whitmore's signature. a motive for murder now threatened by flames. The wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic diary, the broken window, and now this blaze formed a constellation of clues, each demanding the attention of Poirot's little gray cells. Grayson the butler appeared through the smoke, his stoic face smudged with soot. "Sir, the servants are fetching water," he called, his voice strained. "The fire started near the shelf where the ledger was hidden." His words hung heavy, and Poirot noted the flicker of fear in his eyes, a rare breach in his iron reserve. "Précisément," Poirot murmured, his gaze sweeping the room. "A targeted fire, non? We must act swiftly." He gestured for Hastings to follow, stepping back as servants rushed past with buckets, their shouts mingling with the fire's crackle. The fog outside pressed against the windows, a silent witness to the manor's unraveling secrets. The fire was doused with effort, leaving the library a charred ruin. The shelf where Baxter's ledger had been hidden was ash, but Poirot's foresight in retrieving it preserved the evidence. He opened it, scanning the pages under the dim light of a surviving lamp. The numbers told a story of desperation. Debts mounting, contracts forged, Eleanor's wealth siphoned. "Aha, Hastings," he said. "Monsieur Baxter's ambition, it is a dangerous thing, but is it the heart of the shadow?" Hastings coughed, waving smoke from his face. "Baxter's guilty as sin, Poirot. First the gunshot, then the handkerchief, now this fire. He's covering his tracks." His indignation was fervent, but Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Perhaps, mon ami, or perhaps the fire points elsewhere. We must question the household." They gathered the suspects in the drawing room, where the air was thick with suspicion and the acrid scent of smoke. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the fireplace, his nervous tic more pronounced, his gold cufflinks glinting incongruously. Miss Clara Henshaw sat, her shawl singed at the edges, her green eyes wide with fear. Mr. Reginald Baxter paced, his face pale, while Mrs. Beatrice Langley clutched her handkerchief, her lips pressed tight. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice cutting through the tension, "a fire has consumed the library, targeting Monsieur Baxter's ledger. Yet the ledger survives, revealing forgery and debt. Who among you sought to destroy it?" He held up the book, watching their faces for betrayal. Clara spoke first, her voice trembling. "I was in the hall when the fire started. I saw someone near the library door, but it was too dark to tell who." Her eyes flicked to Baxter, then away, and Poirot noted the singed hem of her shawl. A clue? Or an accident? Baxter's face reddened. "You're accusing me? I was in my room. I'd never burn my own ledger. It's my livelihood." His voice was desperate, but Poirot saw the sweat on his brow, the clenched fists that betrayed his fear. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "Your livelihood? Eleanor's money was your lifeline, Reginald. She cut you off, didn't she? That's why you fought." Her words were sharp, and Baxter flinched, his eyes narrowing. Carver cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I was with the servants, helping with the buckets. I saw nothing but—" Eleanor's paranoia made her enemies. Perhaps someone feared what that ledger revealed. His hands shook, and Poirot recalled the unmarked vial in his bag, a poison, not a tonic. Poirot summoned the maid who had found the ledger. "Miss, you saw Mademoiselle Clara near the library. Tell me more." The maid hesitated, her voice low. "She was there before the fire, sir, holding a candle. I thought she was reading, but she looked nervous." Clara's face flushed, her hands twisting her shawl. "I was looking for a book," Clara protested. "Eleanor's diary mentioned letters in the library. I thought they might explain her fear." Her voice wavered, and Poirot wondered if her search was innocent or calculated. The clues were mounting. The singed shawl, the ledger, the vial, the diary's mention of a child. Poirot returned to the study, seeking clarity. The broken window let in a chill wind. stirring the papers on Eleanor's desk. He examined the photograph again, the young Eleanor with a man, possibly Carver, their intimacy hinting at a past love. The diary's cryptic words, "The shadow knows my secret," echoed in his mind. Was the child the key? He questioned Beatrice privately, her bitterness palpable. "Madame, you spoke of Eleanor's secrets. Tell me of this child." Beatrice's eyes darkened, her voice low. "It was a scandal, years ago. Eleanor bore a child out of wedlock, gave it up to protect the family name. She never told me who the father was, but it haunted her. She said the shadow was her guilt, watching her." Her words were heavy, and Poirot noted the tremor in her hands, a sign of truth or regret. Carver, summoned next, grew pale at the mention of the child. I knew of it," he admitted, his tic worsening. "Eleanor confided in me as her doctor. The father was a man she loved, long dead now. I swore to keep her secret." His voice faltered, and Poirot's gaze lingered on his cufflinks. Too fine for a humble doctor, perhaps a gift from Eleanor. The photograph, Poirot realized, was the key. He studied it again, noting the man's blurred features. Carver's jawline perhaps 20 years younger. "Monsieur Carver," he said, "this man, it is you, no? You were Eleanor's lover." Carver flinched, his silence a confession. The web tightened. Carver's past, Baxter's debts, Clara's presence, Beatrice's resentment. Poirot returned to the drawing room where a new clue emerged. Grayson, ever watchful, approached. "Sir, I found a second key to the study hidden in Dr. Carver's coat pocket, another one different from the first." Carver's face drained of color, his stammer incoherent. I don't know how it got there." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Two keys, two lies, the shadow moves closer." He prepared to confront the suspects, but a creak from beneath the floorboards stopped him. A trap door hidden under the rug, its hinges groaning as it began to open. Chapter 7. The Hidden Passage. The creak of the trapdoor beneath the drawing-room rug was a sinister whisper, a sound that seemed to draw the very shadows of Whitmore Manor into sharper focus. Hercule Poirot, standing with the second study key in his hand, froze, his gray eyes gleaming like beacons in the dim light. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever quick to react, stepped back, his face paling as the rug shifted slightly, revealing the outline of a hidden panel. "Good Lord, Poirot!" he exclaimed, his voice taut with alarm. "A trapdoor? In the drawing room? This place is a maze of secrets." Poirot's mustache twitched, his composure unshaken despite the growing tension. "Précisément, mon ami," he said, his voice smooth as polished mahogany. "The manor, it hides its truths beneath our feet. This trapdoor, it is no coincidence, it is a path to the shadow." He clutched the key, its cold metal a reminder of the mounting clues. The wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic diary, the forged ledger, the poison vial, and now, this hidden passage. The fire in the library had been a desperate act, but this discovery felt like the heart of the mystery unfolding. Grayson the butler hovered nearby, his stoic face betraying a flicker of unease. "Sir, I didn't know of any trapdoor," he said, his voice low. "The manor is old, full of oddities, but this—" His words trailed off, and Poirot noted the hesitation in his eyes. A servant's loyalty, or a deeper secret? "Non, Monsieur Grayson," Poirot replied, his tone crisp. "Nothing in this house is by chance. Fetch a lantern, if you please." As Grayson hurried off, Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the trapdoor's edges. The rug, heavy with dust, had concealed it perfectly, but the creak suggested recent use. He lifted the panel, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness, its stone steps slick with damp. The air rising from below was cold, tinged with the scent of earth and decay, and Poirot's little gray cells hummed with anticipation. Hastings, lantern in hand, peered into the abyss. "This is madness, Poirot. A secret passage under the manor? It's like something out of a penny dreadful." His voice echoed faintly, but his excitement was tempered by unease. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A penny dreadful, mon ami? Non, it is a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot shall solve it." He descended first, his polished shoes careful on the slick steps. The lantern's light cast eerie shadows, revealing walls etched with cryptic symbols, runes perhaps, or the marks of long-forgotten smugglers. The passage was narrow, its ceiling low, forcing Poirot to stoop as he led the way. Hastings followed, muttering about the damp and the dark, his breath visible in the chill air. The tunnel stretched beneath the manor, its path winding like a serpent. Cobwebs clung to the walls, and the faint drip of water echoed, a rhythm that matched Poirot's steady heartbeat. At its end, they found a small chamber, its floor littered with dust and debris. In the center stood a locked box, its wood weathered but sturdy, its lock gleaming with fresh scratches. Poirot knelt, his fingers brushing the marks. "Curieux," he murmured. "This box, it has been opened recently." Hastings, ever practical, pried it open with a rusted tool found nearby. Inside was a locket, its silver surface tarnished but engraved with a delicate W. Opening it, Poirot revealed a miniature portrait, a child no more than 5 with Eleanor's piercing eyes. "Aha, Hastings," he said. "The secret of the child, perhaps. But is it Mademoiselle Clara or another?" Hastings frowned, peering at the portrait. Clara? Could she be Eleanor's daughter? That would explain the will, why she inherits everything. His voice was eager, but Poirot's gaze was distant, his mind weaving connections. "The locket, it is a clue, but not the whole truth," Poirot said. He pocketed it, his eyes scanning the chamber. On the floor, half buried in dust, was a torn page from Eleanor's diary, its edges singed as if spared from the library fire. The words were frantic. "The shadow is in the passage. They know what I did, and they will not forgive." Poirot's little gray cells whirred. The passage, the locket, the diary. They pointed to a betrayal buried deep. They returned to the drawing room where the suspects awaited, their faces a gallery of tension. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the fire, his nervous tic betraying his unease. Miss Clara Henshaw clutched her shawl, her green eyes wide with fear. Mr. Reginald Baxter paced, his broad frame tense, while Mrs. Beatrice Langley sat rigid, her handkerchief twisted in her hands. The air was thick with suspicion, the lingering scent of smoke a reminder of the fire's destruction. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, holding up the locket. "This was found in a hidden passage beneath us. A child's portrait, perhaps Lady Eleanor's. Who knows of this?" His voice was a blade, cutting through the room's unease. Baxter spoke first, his voice gruff. "A child? Eleanor never mentioned one. But she was secretive, always hiding things. That passage, it explains the locked room, doesn't it?" His eyes flicked to Carver accusingly. Carver's face paled, his tic worsening. I knew of a child, yes. Eleanor confided in me as her doctor. It was a scandal, long buried. The father was someone close." His voice faltered, and Poirot recalled the photograph, Carver's younger self with Eleanor. Clara's voice was soft, trembling. "I saw Eleanor in the passage once, weeks ago. She was carrying something, a box maybe. She looked frightened, said the shadow was near." Her words were hesitant, and Poirot noted the singed hem of her shawl, a lingering clue from the fire. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "A passage? Of course Eleanor would have her secrets. She hid everything, her child, her wealth, her heart. I saw her argue with Carver last month about a past they shared." Her words were sharp, and Carver flinched, his hands shaking. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Monsieur Carver, you accuse Mademoiselle Clara of poisoning Eleanor, citing the vial, yet the key in your coat suggests another truth. Speak. Carver stammered. The vial was medicinal, and the key, I don't know how it got there. Someone's framing me. His desperation was palpable, but Poirot's eyes were relentless. He turned to Baxter, holding up the ledger. And you, monsieur, your forged contracts, they betray a motive. Did you use the passage to reach the study? Baxter's face reddened, his denial vehement, but Poirot noted the sweat on his brow. The clues were converging, the locket, the passage, the diary's torn page. Poirot summoned Grayson, his voice calm but commanding. Monsieur, who else knew of this passage? Grayson hesitated, his eyes flickering. Only Lady Eleanor, sir, to my knowledge. The manor is old, built for smugglers. She used it to hide things. His voice was low, and Poirot sensed a guarded truth. Hastings whispered, The passage explains the locked room, Poirot. The killer used it to get in and out, didn't they? His enthusiasm was earnest, but Poirot's smile was measured. Perhaps, mon ami, but the shadow is more than a path. It is a person, a motive. He returned to the study, examining the trapdoor's mechanism. It was cleverly concealed, its hinges oiled recently, suggesting frequent use. The wax smudge, the locket, the passage, they pointed to someone close to Eleanor, someone who knew her secrets. As Poirot prepared to confront Clara, a glint of steel caught his eye. A knife, gleaming in the shadows of the passage, its blade sharp and menacing. It was held by no one, yet its presence was a threat, a silent warning that the shadow was near. Chapter 8. The Blade's Edge. The glint of the knife in the shadowed passage beneath Whitmore Manor was a silent menace, its blade catching the lantern's feeble light like a predator's eye. Hercule Poirot, standing at the edge of the hidden chamber with the locket and torn diary page in his pocket, froze, his gray eyes narrowing to slits. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever vigilant, gasped, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Good heavens, Poirot!" he whispered, his voice taut with alarm. "A knife! Someone's here, watching us!" Poirot's mustache twitched, his composure a steady beacon in the damp, oppressive darkness. "Calm, mon ami," he said, his voice smooth as polished steel. "A knife without a hand is but a clue, not a threat, yet. We must discern its purpose." He stepped forward, his polished shoes silent on the stone floor, and lifted the knife carefully with a gloved hand. Its handle was ornate, engraved with a delicate W, matching the letter opener that had pierced Eleanor Whitmore's heart. The air in the passage was thick with the scent of earth and secrets, and Poirot's little gray cells hummed with the weight of the mounting clues. The wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic diary, the forged ledger, the poison vial, the hidden passage, and now, this blade. Hastings hovered close, his lantern casting eerie shadows on the rune-etched walls. "It's Clara's, isn't it?" he said, his voice low. "She's been in the passage, she admitted it. Is she the shadow, Poirot?" His excitement was palpable, but Poirot's smile was enigmatic, his gaze fixed on the knife's gleaming edge. "Perhaps, Hastings, or perhaps it is another deception. The monogram, it is too obvious, non." He pocketed the knife, its weight a reminder of the killer's audacity. The locket with its child's portrait and the diary's cryptic words. "The shadow is in the passage," pointed to a truth buried deep, but the puzzle remained incomplete. "We return above, mon ami. The suspects they await, and the shadow grows restless." They ascended the creaking stairs, emerging into the drawing room where the trapdoor lay hidden beneath the rug. The manor was a labyrinth of deceit, its fog-shrouded walls whispering of betrayal. The suspects were gathered, their faces a gallery of fear and suspicion. Dr. Julian Carver stood by the fire, his nervous tic more pronounced, his gold cufflinks glinting incongruously. Miss Clara Henshaw sat, her shawl pulled tight, her green eyes wide with panic. Mr. Reginald Baxter paced, his broad frame tense, while Mrs. Beatrice Langley clutched her handkerchief, her lips pressed into a thin line. The air was thick with tension, the lingering scent of smoke from the library fire a grim reminder of the stakes. Poirot held up the knife, its blade catching the firelight. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice a blade of its own. "This was found in the passage below, a twin to the weapon that killed Lady Eleanor. Mademoiselle Clara, you knew of this passage, oui? And this monogram, it is familiar." Clara's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she stood. "I didn't kill her," she cried, her voice breaking. "That knife! I used it to cut string in the passage weeks ago. I was hiding from Eleanor. She was so controlling, always watching me. I dropped it, I swear." Her tears were genuine, but Poirot's eyes were relentless, searching for the truth beneath her fear. Hastings whispered, "She's lying, isn't she? The knife, the passage, it's too much coincidence." His indignation was fervent, but Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Patience, mon ami. The knife, it is a clue, but not the whole truth." He turned to Beatrice, who had admitted to seeking Eleanor's letters. "Madame Langley, the diary's torn page named you as a betrayer. What did Eleanor hide from you?" Beatrice's eyes darkened, her voice bitter. "Eleanor betrayed me first. She cut me out of the will, hoarded our family's wealth. That page, she wrote lies about me, claiming I stole from her years ago. I only wanted what was mine." Her handkerchief tore in her hands, and Poirot noted the fury in her words. A motive or a distraction? Carver cleared his throat, his tic worsening. "I knew nothing of the passage," he said, his voice strained. "But Eleanor's paranoia, it was real. She feared someone was after her, using her secrets against her. I only tried to help her." His hands shook, and Poirot recalled the poison vial, a silent threat in his medical bag. Baxter scoffed, his pacing halting. "Secrets? Eleanor's biggest secret was her money. She refused to cover my losses, said I'd betrayed her trust. Those contracts were her idea." His voice was gruff, but Poirot saw the desperation in his eyes, the ledger's forged signatures a damning shadow. The clues were converging, the knife, the locket, the passage, the vial. Poirot returned to the study, determined to unravel the locked room mystery. The broken window let in a chill wind, stirring the papers on Eleanor's desk. He examined the wax smudge again, noting its texture matched Clara's candle. The photograph of Eleanor and a young Carver hinted at a shared past, perhaps the child's origin. The diary's torn page found in the passage spoke of betrayal, but by whom? He summoned Grayson, the butler, his voice calm but commanding. "Monsieur, you said the passage was known only to Lady Eleanor. Yet it has been used recently. Who else might have known?" Grayson hesitated, his eyes flickering. "The old staff, perhaps, sir. The manor was built for smugglers centuries ago. Eleanor used it to hide personal things. I never went down there." His voice was steady, but Poirot sensed a guarded truth. Poirot's mind whirred. The passage explained the locked room. A killer could enter and exit unseen, locking the door behind them. But the knife, with Clara's monogram, was too convenient, like Baxter's handkerchief. He questioned Clara privately, her tears flowing freely. "I used the passage to escape Eleanor's control," she said. "She was kind but suffocating. I never meant harm." Her voice was soft, but Poirot noted the tremor in her hands, a sign of fear or guilt. He confronted Carver next, holding up the vial. "Monsieur, this is no tonic. It is a poison, oui? You knew Eleanor's secret, her child. Were you the father?" Carver's face paled, his silence a confession. "It was long ago," he whispered. "Eleanor gave the child up. I couldn't bear the shame." His tic was relentless, and Poirot saw the weight of guilt in his eyes. The web tightened. Carver's past, Clara's presence, Baxter's debts, Beatrice's resentment. Poirot returned to the drawing room where the suspect's tension was palpable. He held up the locket, its child's portrait, a silent accusation. This child, it is the heart of the shadow. One of you knows the truth. As he spoke, the grandfather clock struck midnight, its chimes heavy in the silence. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. A scuffle erupted, shouts, a crash of furniture, and a gasp of pain. When Grayson lit a candle, the room was chaos, and someone was missing. Chapter 9. Shadows Revealed. The darkness that enveloped Whitmore Manor's drawing room was sudden and absolute, as if the shadows themselves had conspired to smother the light. The grandfather clock's midnight chimes lingered, their echoes drowned by a scuffle, shouts, the crash of a toppled chair, and a sharp gasp of pain. Hercule Poirot, standing with the engraved knife and child's locket in his pocket, remained still, his gray eyes piercing the gloom like beacons. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever reactive, fumbled for his matches, his voice trembling. "Poirot, what's happening? Someone's attacked." His words were swallowed by the chaos, the air thick with the scent of candle wax and fear. Poirot's voice cut through the darkness, calm and commanding. "Come, mon ami, the shadow moves among us, but Hercule Poirot sees even in the dark." His little gray cells whirred, cataloging the sounds, a muffled cry, footsteps, the rustle of fabric. The clues, the wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic diary, the forged ledger, the poison vial, the hidden passage, and the monogrammed knife, were converging, pointing to a truth as elusive as the fog outside. The blackout was no accident. It was a desperate act to conceal or destroy. Grayson the butler struck a match, his stone-like face illuminated as he lit a candle. The flickering flame revealed a scene of disarray. A chair overturned, Clara Henshaw clutching her arm, her shawl torn, and Dr. Julian Carver slumped on the floor, a bruise blossoming on his temple. Mr. Reginald Baxter stood frozen, his face pale, while Mrs. Beatrice Langley gripped her handkerchief, her eyes wide with shock. The room pulsed with suspicion, the fire's dying embers casting long shadows that seemed to whisper Eleanor Whitmore's secrets. "Monsieur Carver," Poirot exclaimed, kneeling beside the doctor. He checked his pulse, finding it steady but weak. "He lives, but he is struck. Who did this?" His voice was a blade, slicing through the tension as he surveyed the suspects. Clara, her voice trembling, spoke first. I felt someone brush past me in the dark." Then Dr. Carver cried out, "And I heard him fall!" Her green eyes were wide, her arm bleeding slightly from a shallow cut. Was it an accident, or a sign of her involvement? Baxter's voice was gruff, defensive. "I didn't touch him. I was by the window when the lights went out. Someone's trying to pin this on me." His fists clenched, and Poirot noted the sweat on his brow, a mirror to his earlier desperation over the forged ledger. Beatrice's laugh was brittle, her handkerchief twisted in her hands. "Pin it on you? Eleanor's death has us all on edge, Reginald. Someone wants us silenced, maybe because of what you hid in that ledger." Her words were sharp, and Baxter flinched, his eyes darting to Poirot. Grayson, holding the candle, cleared his throat. "The lights, sir. They're controlled from the cellar. Someone must have tampered with the fuse." His voice was steady, but Poirot sensed a guarded truth, a servant's loyalty masking deeper knowledge. Poirot's mind raced, the clues aligning like stars in a constellation. The blackout, the attack on Carver, the knife in the passage. They were acts of a cornered shadow. He helped Carver to a chair, the doctor stirring with a groan. I didn't see who hit me," Carver mumbled, his tic absent in his dazed state. "But Eleanor, she knew too much." His words were cryptic, and Poirot's eyes gleamed. Précisément, Poirot said, addressing the room. The shadow moves among us, striking to hide the truth. But Hercule Poirot sees through the darkness. He held up the locket, its child's portrait catching the candlelight. This child, it is no longer a mystery. It is a boy, long dead, Eleanor's son, a secret that binds you all. He turned to Clara, whose tears had dried. Mademoiselle, you thought you were the child, no? But the portrait, it is not you. Clara's face crumpled, her voice a whisper. I hoped I was hers. She was kind but distant. I found the locket once, and she took it from me, saying it was her shame. Beatrice's voice was bitter. Shame. Eleanor's shame was her greed. She hid that child to protect her name, cut me out to keep her fortune. That passage. She used it to hide her guilt. Her eyes burned, and Poirot noted the fury in her words. A motive or a deflection? Baxter scoffed, his pacing resuming. Guilt? Eleanor's guilt was her stubbornness. She refused to cover my losses, threatened to expose my contracts. I didn't need to kill her. She was ruining me already. His voice cracked, and Poirot saw the desperation in his eyes, the ledger's shadow looming large. Carver, now more coherent, spoke softly. I was her doctor and her confidant. The child was ours, mine and Eleanor's. He died young, of fever. She blamed me, said I failed her. She threatened to tell the world, to ruin me. His admission was a weight, and Poirot's mind seized on it. The photograph, the vial, the passage. Poirot's voice was calm but relentless. Monsieur Carver, you poisoned Eleanor, The vial in your bag, it was no tonic. You used the passage to enter the study, stabbed her to stage a suicide, and locked the door from within. The wax smudge, it was from your candle, dropped in haste. Carver's face drained of color, his tic returning. No. He faltered, then whispered, I loved her, but she was going to destroy me. I slipped the poison in her tea over weeks. The letter opener. It was to make it quick, to end her suffering. His voice broke, a confession torn from guilt. Hastings gasped, his eyes wide. Good Lord, Poirot, you've done it. Carver's the shadow. His triumph was earnest, but Poirot's expression remained guarded. Not all is revealed, mon ami, he said. The wax smudge, the knife, the blackout, they confirm Carver's guilt, but there is more. He turned to the group, his voice resonant. The shadow is guilt, yes, but also fear. Clara's vision, Baxter's gunshot, Beatrice's key, they were distractions, red herrings to cloud the truth. He paced, his mind weaving the final threads. The coded letter, trust no one, the shadow knows, was Eleanor's warning, written in fear of Carver. The passage allowed him to bypass the locked door, the poison ensured her silence, and the fire and blackout were attempts to destroy evidence. But one clue remained elusive, a final piece that nagged at Poirot's senses. He returned to the study, examining the desk once more. Beneath a stack of papers, he found a hidden compartment, missed in earlier searches. Inside was a second vial, identical to Carver's, but empty, its cap loose. Curieux, Poirot murmured. A second dose, perhaps? Or another hand at work? As he pocketed the vial, Carver stirred, his voice a whisper. There's more. Eleanor knew something else. She found out about... His words were cut off by a cough, his eyes fluttering shut. The room grew still, the candle's flame, flickering as if stirred by an unseen breath. Chapter 10. The Final Truth. The flickering candlelight in Whitmore Manor's drawing room cast long, wavering shadows as if the house itself mourned the secrets it could no longer hold. Dr. Julian Carver's whispered confession hung in the air, his words cut short by a racking cough. There's more. Eleanor knew something else. He slumped in his chair, his bruised temple stark against his pallor, his eyes fluttering shut. Hercule Poirot, standing with the second poison vial in his gloved hand, surveyed the suspects, Miss Clara Henshaw, Mr. Reginald Baxter, and Mrs. Beatrice Langley, their faces a tableau of shock, fear, and guilt. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever loyal, hovered at Poirot's side, his voice trembling with awe. "You've done it, Poirot. Carver's the killer. But what's this other secret?" Poirot's gray eyes gleamed, his mustache twitching with the faint smile of a man who saw the puzzle's final piece. "Patience, mon ami," he said, his voice smooth as velvet yet sharp as a blade. "The shadow is unveiled, but its echo remains. Hercule Poirot will reveal all." The manor's oppressive air, thick with the scent of smoke and wax, seemed to pulse with anticipation. The clues, the wax smudge, the coded letter, the attic diary, the forged ledger, the hidden passage, the monogrammed knife, and the twin vials had led to this moment, and Poirot's little gray cells were poised to weave them into truth. He paced the room, his polished shoes silent on the rug, his presence commanding the attention of all. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice resonant, "the murder of Lady Eleanor Whitmore was no simple crime. It was a tapestry of guilt, woven with threads of love, betrayal, and fear. Dr. Carver, he has confessed, but let us unravel the how and why." Carver stirred, his voice a rasp. "I loved her, but she would have destroyed me." His words were faint, his tic absent in his weakened state. Poirot nodded, his gaze unrelenting. "Précisément, Monsieur Carver. You were Eleanor's lover long ago. Together you had a son, a secret buried to protect her name. The locket found in the passage held his portrait, a boy lost to fever, a tragedy that haunted you both." Poirot held up the locket, its silver catching the candlelight. Clara's eyes widened, Beatrice's lips trembled, and Baxter's pacing halted, each suspect bound to the revelation. Poirot continued, his voice measured. "Eleanor, she grew paranoid, fearing her secret would be exposed. You, Monsieur Carver, poisoned her tea with the vial from your bag, a slow toxin, weakening her over weeks. The night of her death, you used the hidden passage to enter the study, bypassing the locked door. You stabbed her with the letter opener, staging a suicide, and locked the door from within, leaving the key in her hand." Hastings gasped, his eyes wide. "The passage! That's how he did it. The locked room wasn't locked at all." His excitement was earnest, but Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Not so simple, mon ami. The wax smudge on the desk, it was from your candle, Monsieur Carver, dropped in haste as you fled. The coded letter, 'Trust no one. The shadow knows,' was Eleanor's warning, written in fear of you. The knife in the passage with Mademoiselle Clara's monogram was a distraction planted to cast suspicion." Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara, who flinched, her shawl slipping. Clara's voice was soft, trembling. I didn't know about the knife. I used the passage to escape Eleanor's control, not to harm her, I swear it." Her tears were genuine, but Poirot's eyes were relentless, searching for cracks in her story. He turned to Baxter, holding up the ledger. "Monsieur Baxter, your forged contracts gave you motive, oui? Eleanor threatened to expose your fraud, to ruin you. The gunshot in the garden, the handkerchief at the window, they were clumsy attempts to divert suspicion." Baxter's face reddened, his fists clenching, but he remained silent, his guilt evident. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "Expose him? Eleanor exposed us all, her family, her secrets. She cut me out, kept everything for Clara. I took the study key to find her letters, but I found nothing." Her voice cracked, and Poirot noted the pain beneath her fury. A sister betrayed, but not a killer. Poirot's mind whirred, the final clue, the second vial, nagging at him. He held it up, its empty glass glinting. This, found in the study's hidden compartment, matches the poison in Monsieur Carver's bag. But why a second vial? Was it insurance or another hand? Carver's eyes flickered, a shadow of fear crossing his face. I don't know, Carver whispered. Eleanor found the first vial, confronted me. She said she'd tell everyone about our son, my failure. I had to act. His voice broke and he slumped further, his confession complete. Poirot nodded, his voice calm but resolute. The shadow, it was your guilt, Monsieur Carver. You poisoned Eleanor to silence her, used the passage to stage the murder, and sowed chaos, the fire, the blackout, to hide your tracks. But the little gray cells, they see all. He turned to the group, his presence commanding. The case is closed. The police, they will take you now. Grayson, ever watchful, had summoned the authorities, their footsteps heavy in the corridor. Carver rose unsteadily, his hands trembling as he faced his fate. I loved her, he murmured, as but love can destroy. The police led him away, his silhouette fading into the fog beyond the manor's windows. Clara, cleared of suspicion, inherited Eleanor's estate, her tears mingling with relief. Baxter faced charges for fraud, his ambitions crumbled. Beatrice, left with her bitterness, retreated to her memories, her handkerchief a tattered relic. Hastings, marveling at Poirot's brilliance, clapped his shoulder. How do you do it, Poirot? You saw through it all. The passage, the poison, the shadow. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The little gray cells, mon ami. They see the truth where others see only shadows. He adjusted his Homburg hat, his gaze distant. The manor, its secrets laid bare, seemed to exhale, the fog outside thinning as dawn approached. But a final question lingered, a whisper in Poirot's mind. Carver's last words. Eleanor knew something else, hinted at a deeper secret, one the second vial might conceal. Was it another betrayal, or a red herring meant to torment? Poirot stepped into the study one last time, his eyes scanning the desk. Beneath a hidden panel, mist in the chaos, was a single note written in Eleanor's hand. The shadow is not one, but two. As dawn broke, painting the fog in hues of gold, Poirot pocketed the note, his silhouette fading into the mist. The case was closed, but the echo of a second shadow lingered, a mystery for another day.